Hello, my name is Carlos Rodriguez, and I'm a Sitecore consultant with Arc Systems, and I welcome you to part 4 performing A/B testing. I thought this was going to be 3 parts, but I need a little more time for demoing, so I'm doing a part 4. I do try to keep these videos to 15-minute increments, so when I was going over in part 3, I decided it needs to be a part 4 where I'm going to complete my A/B test demo and then discuss the reporting you tend to see through these A/B test demo as well. So I haven't covered that yet, and I want to make sure I cover that in this part 4. Now, before I get into that, I do want to just talk about what's been going on in this series so far. So in part 1, I talked about goals versus traffic and demoed how to create goals. And to me, that's very important because if you don't have goals, it's really hard to test. I mean, overall, you can test traffic, but since traffic is not a true indication of success or failure of a site, it's important to understand the nature behind creating goals and what's involved with that. So if you're not sure about that, I definitely invite you to look at part 1 even before you get to part 2 or 3. In part 2, I talk about testing through my presentation, where I talk about why we test, and when I talk about other aspects of testing, such as the testing cycle, A/B versus multivariate testing, page testing, which Sitecore does, some other final points about testing, and then I actually demonstrated doing a page test. In part 3, I completed my page test demo and I went into doing A/B testing, and I was right in the middle of it when I ran out of time. So now I'm adding this part 4 to complete the A/B testing demo, including how to complete an A/B test and how to look at the reports for it. So that's what's important here. So without further ado, I'm going to close this presentation and go back to Sitecore, and let's do exactly that. And I do want to step out of Sitecore and sort of start from the beginning so that there is no confusion in terms of how to get into this. So what I'm going to do is log back into Sitecore, and because I'm doing an A/B test on a specific page, what I would typically do is go into the content editor. I like going to the desktop, so I'll do it that way. I will click on the start button. I will go to content editor and kick it off. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the content section where the page I'm using on my fake vacation booking site, I want to make sure that's clear. You can't get to this site because it's local to my computer. It's the Universal Studios Orlando one. Um, let me just do one thing here because I don't want to lose my changes. That's fine. Okay. All right. So in any event, I'm going to use my Universal Studios Orlando one to kick off, to demonstrate A/B testing. And where I left off was I went directly to this item. Okay. Then under Publish, I went into the Experience Editor. And the first thing I did was set up a test on a component. And one of the things I'll mention again is that another reason for building your pages from components in Sitecore rather than building the HTML from scratch is because if you have components in Sitecore, that lends itself to the analytics features of Sitecore, including testing. So because now what a marketer or an author can do is select the component like I just did, and then click on this button right here to set up the test. And note that none of this would involve a developer or coding or anything of that nature. So if you build your site from components like Sitecore suggests as a best practice, then those components can be tested against directly using the mechanism Sitecore provides right out of the box. So with that being the case, let me click on this command. And here I want to set up my variations. So I'm going to go through that process again because it won't take me very long. I did talk about it in detail in the last video. So I'm just going to jump right into setting up my variations. So I have one for the original Universal Studios page, which is using my transformer data source. But what I'm going to do is add a new variation for that, for the exact same component. I'll call this one Harry Potter. And I'm going to use the data source I set up for the Harry Potter one. Okay, then I'll add one more variation and I'll call it Volcano Bay because what it focuses on is the fact that Volcano Bay is park number 3 at Universal Orlando now. Okay, so once I've done all of that, I can click on OK. And now I'm ready to set up the test involving specifically the changes to this component. And as I mentioned in the last video, you can actually examine each variation for testing by using the addition to the toolbar that shows up for this component once the test is set up on it. So I could see what the 3 variations would look like once the testing begins. Okay, so now I'm ready to start the test. First thing I would do is save the page now that there's a test set up on it. And before I go any further, what I should also do is publish out my latest changes so that the live site is aware of the elements of this test. So I'll give it a moment. And now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and kick off the test. Now note that I can kick it off from the item itself. Note that it says here create a test, but I'll do it from the experience editor, where if I look below the toolbar and the navigation bar, there are a set of notifications, and one of them will involve creating this test. So what I'm going to do is click on this link and set up the test. Okay, now as I'm waiting for this to complete loading, note that I'm seeing more than 3 variations. That would be an indication to me that what I have going on right now is a multivariate test, and the reason that's happening is that if I go to the variables tab, I have 2 variables on this page, one involving the subscribe form and one involving the event intro component I'm actually testing for. So what I could do is just remove this check mark, and if I exclude the subscribe form, I'm then down to the 3 variations involving Harry Potter, Volcano Bay, and the original, which involves the Transformer image. Okay, so now that that's done, I can continue with setting up my test. I'm getting these warnings, by the way, because I don't get a lot of traffic to the site, seeing that it's a locally loaded site that no one else has access to but me. So I'm going to ignore the warning because it's, I don't care about anyone being able to access my site. I'm only using this site to demonstrate testing. So I'm not going to worry about that. Note that it asks you what your expectation is. I'm going to choose increase because the point of the test is to make sure that I get an increase in engagement value, certainly not a decrease. I'm going to go to variables, and here I'm leaving it on event intro, which means I'm only testing for 3 variations. I want everyone who comes to the site to have access to the test. And if I was doing an automatic selection, then I would choose a confidence level based on that. I'm going to keep it on 95. That's fine with me. For the objectives, here I would choose the goal I want to test against specifically, and the one I want to test against is my booked vacation goal. So that's the goal I want to see get triggered, or I want to measure triggering based on the 3 variations, because that goal is used to indicate that someone actually booked a vacation with me. If you're not sure how to create goals, I actually talk about how to do that in part 1 of this series, so I would encourage you to watch that to get more information about how to set up goals and apply it to an item. I'm going to manually select the winner because I'm not going to get thousands of people. I'm not going to get enough traffic for an automatic selection to be practical. And then I can indicate here how long should the test run and what's the maximum amount of time the test should run. So you do have the ability to set those up as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the test. Okay, that probably means I took too long, so I was doing a lot of talking. So I'll just create the test again, except I'll get right to it. So note that if you take too long, it will not get done. All right, so you probably want to make all your decisions before you get out here. Now I'll start the test, and now I should be fine. So what does this mean? Well, it means the following. If, let's say, I launch a page incognito. Okay. All right. If I launch this page, note that I'll get a variation of the site, and I'm getting a variation of this page. And note that I'm getting the Harry Potter one. So that's not even the current version that's on the page. So note that what it's monitoring is whether I book a vacation when this variation is in place as part of this test. So if I click on book now, okay, here booking is done. And now it's going to record that the booking was done and record the engagement value associated with the goal assigned to this booking is done page. So what I mean by that is that if I go back to Sitecore a second and my booking complete is this page, if I go to analyze and click on goals, I assign the booked vacation goal to it. And that booked vacation goal has an engagement value of 100, and that's what it's recording for that particular visit. Okay. So that's what it means in the end. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And if I was to do it one more time, now I'm getting the Transformers variation. So now it's keeping track of what I do if Transformers was the vacation I was working with. Okay. So that's the deal. As your visitors visit the site, they'll get one of the 3 variations, and it's going to keep track of what they do while they're visiting the site during that visit, including whether they've triggered that goal or not. And certainly the test results will be a reflection of that goal being triggered or not. So that's the deal there. Okay, so I did already set this up for another test, and it has been running for a while. So I want to be able to show you what the results tend to look like when that is the case. So I did this for Disney World. So what I'm going to do is now look at this in Experience Editor mode, because if I do, then one of my options is to look at the test results. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and note that I'm looking at it through the optimization tab. So on this one, I was looking at 4 variations of this page. There's that one, there's the one that focuses on Main Street, there's the one that focuses on Walt Disney, and there should be one that focuses, oh, there's a little bit more here. Wait, sorry, I just need a little bit. Okay. All right, so there it is, the one that focuses on visiting the character. So I want to see which variation gets people interested in booking a vacation with Disney. So on this engagement value tab, I can get a sense of what the engagement value is per visit. So note that it tends to do it in this order, where people really want to see Disney characters, so that's getting the highest conversion. Main Street gets the next one. Knowing about Walt gets the 3rd one, and the original one. The conversion rate's not too high, so even though it may be larger than the overall original version of the page, it's the one that got the least change. So certainly if I'm thinking about picking a winner right now, I'm leaning towards the gang. Okay, now if I scroll below, I can see more information about the conversion rate, the top page being clicked, the bounce rate, meaning how long am I on that page before I do something else. It's going to be quick for me because I'm literally just going from that page to booking. Average time spent on the page, average duration per visit, and the number of pages I viewed. And again, on a typical site, these numbers would be larger. Because I'm just doing this for testing purposes and for the demonstration of this video, it was pretty short. So no one should be, hopefully no one's too surprised by that. For the conversion rate, I can examine any of the goals that might be involved in the visit to the site, but I'm just going to go directly to booked vacation since that's the one I cared about and the only goal I cared about triggering. So the values you're going to get are going to be about the same but note that through this conversion rate, I could look at to see what's going on with some of the other goals that might get triggered while people are on this site. And then the variables focuses around the particular component that I'm updating. So this should be the variables, since variables focus on the components involved in a test, this should be focusing on variations of those variables. So for an A/B test, it should look very similar to what you would get for conversion rate and engagement value in terms of the graph. If I was doing a multivariate test, then I should get an option for each variation of the page based on the components being used. But because I just stuck with one component, the graph looks very similar to what you get for conversion rate and what you get for engagement value, simply because it only involves one component. So in terms of the information, you're going to get very similar information because it's an A/B test, and that's to be expected. If it's a multivariate test, then this should involve all the combinations, so you should have some differences in terms of what you get in this graph. But I'm focusing on A/B testing, so that's why I'm going to focus my attention. Okay. So that's what you get through test results. I could cancel the test if I want to. This was probably an automatic test because what I would expect is a pick a winner, so I could pick a winner right now. But, oh, here it is. There's my pick a winner button, which is what I was looking for. So I could pick a winner right now if I'm convinced that this is the one that's going to win out in the end, so there's no reason for me to go any further. Okay, but that's the deal, and that's typically what you see for the results. So that's about everything I want to say about doing A/B testing and how you can evaluate an A/B test. So I'm hoping you found this rather useful. If you have questions, please feel free to ask me. And thank you so much for participating in this video. Have a good day.